And welcome to Gordo's Games. It's Gordo here bringing you some Digimon TCG content. And today for you lovely people, we have the first place winner from our card cavern event. You've all asked questions around who took what. I never got lists for it. I'm slowly going to get them out to you as best as I can. I am uploading content as often as I can this week with it all. There are some odd games here and there. If you want to see the guy that threw the tournament away from himself and made us only have 4 rounds, by all means check that out. It's literally named as such, the guy who threw the tournament, or the game at least. But great guy, all credit to him. It was a mishap, but it's hilarious to watch back. And if you want to see a deck get punished, that we all love to see get punished, check out Ankylomon Strikes Back. That's also a funny one. So great content all around, some good people, good results all around for the tournament, and I was happy to have them all about, to be honest. We're joined here today by Shen Ang, who took Imperial Dramon to first place. I won't go on anymore, let's just get into it with him. At the Cavern Tournament, piloting Imperial Dramon. First of all, congrats, well played.
Thanks.
I only managed to catch one of your rounds at the very end, and I only managed to stay for one part of it, which was very sad because you came back and won that one, which was pretty epic after the very hard brick at the start, I saw.
Yeah, exactly. It was the wrong time to stream my plays because I was a terrible player. I can't say I'm probably the best player out there, but that was a very very poor showing actually.
So I mean, I'm sad I missed the comeback because I was like, oh no, this is how it's going. It's not. Once you're 1-0 down with Imperial, just trying to get that comeback in the following 2 games, especially against the Green Ceres, is a big feat.
Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, maybe I could run through some of these things later on in the deck profile about what helped me to get a comeback, why I bricked in the first place and things like that. That could be useful.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the deck then. Now, you take it away. I'm a spectator at this point.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so first of all, the main reason why I played Imperial Dramon for this tournament is because it's quite a direct deck. Some of my friends like to say that it's quite a one-dimensional deck because all you do is that you get on the board, you go face, you get big, and you go face again. And that's really one of the reasons why I ran with that on Sunday night because it was a work night and I didn't want to think too much. I'm more of a yellow player or a purple player usually. But for those decks, right, it takes a long time to play. So yeah, I just wanted to go fast and get a quick win or lose very quickly, which is what Imperial Dramon is really good at doing. So yeah, just running through the deck. It's nothing too special, I would say. Most Imperial Dramon decks are quite standard, but let me just run you through it anyway. So in my version, I run, well, I call it my version, but it's not really. I run 4 Demi Vmons, and I run one Upamon. Sometimes you might see people running 4 of these instead, or instead of an Upamon, they might run the other Demi Vmon. The reason why I run this particular Demi Vmon that says when attacking once per turn, if I have jamming, I draw 1. The reason why I run this instead of the others is because you have lots of jamming Digimon in this deck. You have your jamming Vmon, you have your Imperial Dramon, you have your Pilgrimon, you have your Frigidmon. So the chances of you drawing a card when you're attacking is a lot higher. So I feel like there's a lot more value in this than the other Demi, because I think the other Demi is something about if you unsuspend or something, you get to draw a card, but what are the chances that you get to unsuspend, right?
Yeah, it's just that falls more into the All Force deck than the Imperial, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. So the reason why I decided to run Upamon over the other Demi Vmon is because Upamon basically says, once per turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution card in play, you trigger draw 1 when you attack. And this is actually quite useful because one of the ways that people try to stop rush decks like Imperial Dramon is that they just throw a fat blocker in there. So there are some instances whereby you get to just get a card draw from this Upamon. So yeah, that's it for the Digitama. And next up, you have your standard 4 copies of Vmon. So Vmon is a really good card because it has jamming, only costs 3, and it's a 0 evolution cost as per most level 3s. This is actually quite good because it helps to put pressure onto your opponent. But the downside is that it's only 2000 DP. So one of the things I tend to do when I attack with a Vmon, of course you have to be sure that your opponent doesn't have a blocker, but most importantly you have to be sure that your opponent doesn't have something that will be able to kill your Vmon. So one of the things I like to do is that if I were to swing in with a Vmon, I would try to have a blocker on the side or use X Vmon to, unsuspend it, just so that I can keep the aggression going. But yeah, those are the things I usually like to look out for, because I think Vmon is probably too important to, lose after just hitting at one security. So yeah, do watch out for your Vmons.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense because he is overly strong card. I mean, if he was anything more than 2,000 with the effects he's got, I think he'd be a little bit more broken than he is, and he's bad enough
Yeah,
to deal
no.
with at this point.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. Yeah, so after that, I run 3 copies of Elecmon and 3 copies of Gomamon. Um, the reason why I run this is fairly straightforward. You just want to get as many bodies on the board as possible. It's kind of like, as mentioned earlier, Imperial Dramon is very much like a rush deck.
Mm.
Um, as much as you want to build up your Vmon or Demi Vmon into an Imperial Dramon as soon as possible, so that you can swing in as much as possible. One analogy I want to, you know, show or take up for the Imperial Dramon deck is that it just can't be a long sword that is very, very thin. You can't just hit hard with one Digimon, because you have lots of decks running around like Shine Greymon that can remove your huge stack. You have cards out there like Trump Sword or the Chimeramon that can easily remove your Pilgrimon. So if you just focus on building one Digimon source, it's just not going to bode well for your attacks. It's just not going to help you with your longevity. And so I think it's quite useful to kind of have these kind of small guys just running around, either poking at your opponent's security, or just filling up the board, so that if they remove one of your level 4s or 5, it's okay. You can start again very, very quickly, rather than trying to start all over again in your raising area.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, because I've always considered Imperial Dramon. It's kind of, it has well, people do play it like an Imperial Rush kind of theme. It is the same kind of
Yeah.
concept. You always just want to attack as many times as you possibly can, and if you can get the up to the end point, which is the Imperial Dramon, that's you closing out game basically.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. So if someone tries to stop your tempo by removing a level 4s or 5, at least if you have these on the field, you have other level 2s on the field, you can use them to, build it up very quickly again. So you can either build your Imperial Dramon on one side, on one source, and at the same time, try to build these Elecmons into level 4s or 5, so that you can speed up, so to ensure that you lose as little momentum as possible if you were to lose one Digimon. And also because it's just a 2 cost, it's very good at choking your opponent's memory. Because what I found for this deck is that it's very important to maintain memory control. The reason for that is because if you have your Pilgrimon or you have your Imperial Dramon out in the field, if you give your opponent too much memory, they can easily just put a blocker there. You can just play a blocker for 5 cost and pass you back to 1. And it's not really going to hurt them for them to just play a blocker outright. So yeah, it would be good to just choke your opponent's memory through the use of these little guys.
No, it makes sense. It kind of plays like a old-fashioned Blue Omni, where it's all about the memory game.
Exactly. Yeah, so speaking of memory game, the final set of rookies that we have now is just Gomamon. There are quite a variations as to what your final rookie should be, because the most popular ones are usually your Elecmon, your Gomamon, and your 2-cost Gomamon, and your Vmon. Some other people like to run the other Vmon, which when you unsuspend, you gain 1 card or something. And there's another one, the 3-cost Gabumon, whereby if you were to play it, you get to draw a card. But I prefer to play Gomamon. The reason for that is because as mentioned earlier, right, I feel like it's a little bit too dangerous to give your opponent too much memory. If you were to play that Gabumon straight up for that card draw value, you might just give them 3 memory for their turn, and there's a lot of things you can do to raise blockers in order to block all your small little guys. The reason why I like to play the Gomamon is because on deletion you get to gain 1 memory, which goes back to the theme of controlling your memory, your opponent's memory. So it's really good to get a Gomamon on, and then you can put a Gorillamon on it, or you can get like a Grizzlymon on top of that, so that if they were to delete this Digimon, there's a chance of the turn being passed back to you, and you can go back. You can get your Imperial Dramon going again and start attacking them again.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Cool. Okay, so going on to the level 4s. I run for Gorillamon. I think might be a less popular opinion, a controversial opinion, but I feel like the Gorillamon is probably the most important level 4 in the entire deck. I don't think it's Frigidmon, I don't think it's XVmon. I think it's actually Gorillamon because it helps you to accelerate your rookies all the way up. And just that one evolution cost is so useful because it means that by just evolving your rookies into Gorillamon, you get to draw a card, you get to get one step closer to that Imperialdramon, get one step closer to that Imperialdramon. And yeah, it's just a really solid card in general because as of right now, most of the blockers are 6k, which means that if you want to swing in with your Gorillamon, if you really want to, you can always have the option of trading your Gorillamon with the blocker so that you can allow your smaller rookies like your Vmon to attack freely without being blocked by a Grizzlymon.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And to be fair, with how this deck works, comparison to the old-fashioned Blue Omnimon, it's less efficient because everything costs 3 to get up into it. Because you go Paildramon, Dino Beamon, they cost 3. Then Paildramon is 3. There's nothing that's cheap costing it. So having that cost curve there to bump you up to 5, because 5 is where your deck becomes live, because your 7k is swinging over blockers with jamming, piercing with the Dino Beam, things like that. So you really need to excel past the level 4, don't you, really?
Yeah, exactly. And with so many removals in the meta right now, like your Gaia Force, your Trump Swords, your Shangri-Mons, what I like to do is that I'll usually raise my rookies in the raising area, put Gorillamon in the raising area, and I'll try to like hold it there until I'm fairly confident that I have that sort of Imperialdramon combo or Imperialdramon combo coming out in the next turn or so. So yeah, it's just a solid champion to keep in a raising area because it's so cheap to keep it running live.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and next up I have 3 copies of Frigimon. So some people like to run 4 copies, but I feel like Frigimon isn't exactly the best card out there. It is useful, of course, because it has jamming. But my gripe about it is that there are tons of rush decks in the meta, and therefore lots of people will be running tons of blockers. So if you were to have at least one blocker in your opponent's view, a Frigimon isn't going to do much. It's just going to swing into that blocker and just die, and it's just a waste of the jamming. So it is useful only if your opponent bricks and doesn't get a blocker, but its usefulness isn't very consistent, so I only run 3 copies.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's one of those. It's just that added bit of jamming in case you need to draw into it. If they don't have the blockers, you can throw it down, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's just added pressure. So against like a a rookie matchup, rookie rush matchup, or a mirror match, Frigimon can be quite useful. But other than that, if you play against purple, black, red, it's not that great.
Yeah, no, that's a given. And then we're on to the XVmon.
Yeah, XVmon. So 3 copies. So some people run 4 copies as well. But I decided to take 1 copy out. Similar reason for Frigimon is it's a very useful tech card, right? If you're swinging for Frigimon, you can always digivolve one of your rookies in XVmon and then unsuspend a Frigimon to go for the security again. But then again, what are the odds of your level 4s and below attacking multiple times if your opponent has a blocker on the field? It's always quite difficult to tell if XV1 is going to be useful in every single matchup. And that's why I kind of opt to have 3 copies instead, because there are times where I draw XVmon, I try to digivolve into it, and I tell myself, oh yeah, I really wish this was a Gorillamon or a Grizzlymon. So there are times like that happen, which kind of tells you that, you know what, XVmon is good, but it's not good in every. It's not good most of the time.
Yeah, he's more of a tech choice. I found in Rookie Rush, he most definitely has a home, but in Imperial, it doesn't always come out very clutch. I mean, it's nice and ideal to restand your Vmon, but like you said, if they have a blocker down, it's only just obviously restand anything if you get the chance to do so. He's not. I wouldn't say he's a key part of Imperial as much as most people have thought.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's good to have. It keeps the pressure on. But for Imperial, you want to get to Imperialdramon as soon as possible. If you were to, just restand your XVmon, leave it vulnerable, and have it destroyed the next turn, it's just not worth it.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay, and next on to the Grizzlymon. I've seen some decks whereby people run either no copies of Grizzlymon or 4 copies of Grizzlymon. In my version, I kind of run 2. because I feel like it's the sweet spot of having enough protection against Rookie Rush, but not having too much that slows down the momentum of this deck. Because as much as you want to rely on imperialdramon um, to attack your opponent, sometimes if you're playing against Rookie Rush, there are two options for you. Either you play a Gristmillimon as soon as possible to block those small rookies, or you try to outrush the Rookie Rush by attacking them first. So I feel like having two copies is just about enough in the deck, because it is enough for you to have the aggressive momentum to join to everything else, so they can digivolve into imperialdramon. And yet, if you really really need a Gristmillimon, if you really need a block on the field, at least you have at least some chance of drawing it. So yeah, I just run two copies here.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I've seen that quite a lot. People have dropped the blockers out, and I mean, was there any games you wish you had more blockers, or was it literally the magic number?
I think it is the magic number, and only because I'll come to it later, but I do run 3 copies of Puppetmon, and that has been really, really helpful against the Rookie Rush. Actually, you know what? Since we're here, I might as well talk about it. I run 3 copies of Puppetmon, and I think this is the reason why I can get away with running just 2 copies of Gristmillimon. I think in my 4 matchups during the tournament, the first matchup was against Rookie Rush. The third one was against a Rookie Rush / imperialdramon hybrid. And Puppetmon really, really saved me for those 2 matchups. For the first one against Rookie Rush, I wiped in the first game in I think about 5 turns or so, because this is my first time playing 1.5. I've never played against this version of Rookie Rush. I had no idea what they did. And so I wiped up for game 1. For game 2, I kind of like I drew into Puppetmon, and I had another Puppetmon already in my hand. I was down to about just 2 more securities. My opponent had, I think, 3 or 4 Digimon on the field and 1 more in the raising area. But so I had to, bite the bullet and just throw down a Puppetmon. So essentially what I did was I suspended one of the Digimon. Another one's already suspended, which means that they can only hit with 3 other Digimon or something, which means I had 3 security, I think, because I would have died. But basically, by playing that Puppetmon, even though I was giving a Rookie Rush deck 6 security, I was able to slow down their aggression. And then at the same time, I was able to attack my opponent as well, and I won the next turn because of that Puppetmon play. So actually, I feel like lots of people, they don't rate Puppetmon because they say that, oh, it's really expensive, and sometimes you might only suspend 1 Digimon, so it's not super helpful. But actually, I feel like it's a more aggressive
there, Loki Ricky.
plus defensive play than having lots of blockers on the field, which is why I feel like having 3 Puppetmon and 2 Gristmillimon is the perfect mix.
Yeah, no, I've seen that with it, because I've been skeptical about any of the the Dark Masters from set 1, like Piedmon, Puppetmon, all those. Like Volcanic seems to be the most staple one that can still get away with most things, and I think Puppetmon follows that. He's still playable to the point of he has a place in decks that are very aggro rush, because especially in the matchup against Rookie Rush, for instance, because they're looking to do the exact same thing as you. So if you puppet them, I mean, it's a solid answer, because the only thing they can do after that is XVmon a number of times to try and pull out the win, but that requires a lot of setup.
Yeah, exactly. And from my experience, when people finally figure out that you're playing imperialdramon, one thing that they would do is that they wouldn't exactly they will put their blockers up to try to block you, right? But they will also try to be quite aggro against you, so they won't really kind of hold back their attackers, because they know that your Digimon probably can kill them if it's suspended anyway. So they usually get quite aggressive as long as they have their blockers up, and that's actually quite good for Imperialdramon players if you have a Puppetmon in hand, because it means that the next turn you can basically suspend everything that they have, and especially if you have more than 1 copy of Puppetmon in your hand, you can suspend them for two turns in a row, which can actually turn the tides and win you the game.
Yeah, I found that with Pokemon, you need to have a Slocum. If you have one, then throw it down. It really doesn't clinch the game for you. You have to do it on repeat, if anything, just to build your board up at the same time.
Exactly. So it's all about so a lot about Imperialdramon is really about trying to be aggressive as possible, but at the same time not die. But actually, now that I think about it, that's quite a dumb thing to say because that's just Digimon, isn't it?
It is, it is. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, it is. So, moving on from Puppetmon, I play 4 copies of Dino Beamon and 4 copies of Imperialdramon. It's just the typical level 5 package for Imperialdramon decks. I did play around with the idea of throwing down Shakumon,
Okay.
um, because you can Digivolve into it from your blue level 4s, and it's quite a good um, kind of like defensive strategy against Rookie Rush. But the downside of that is that that's all it does. It doesn't really give any attacking presence. And if you were to Digivolve into Shakumon, it doesn't allow you to Digivolve into Imperialdramon or any other level 6s. So it's pretty much a dead Digi source over there.
Yeah, and it
So
doesn't. It
maybe
really
some other players, yeah,
doesn't really excel your game plan. Basically, just kind of puts you in a hole, and then you're left there with this Gakumon thinking, I don't really want to use this now.
yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, so maybe other players can make it work. I'm just going to throw that idea out there. Maybe someone can make it work, but I tried it. Didn't work for me.
And
So yeah,
with this pack, the lineup here, because obviously this is the most generic one for Imperial, because you want to make it 3 cost every time. Did you ever try any alternatives? 'Cause I know somebody was trying, kind of the old vibe Blue Omni kind of thing, where they keep some of the vanillas in there. I think they cut down the Dino B to like a 2 of, had the Pale Drum on at 4, because obviously that's the inherently better one, and just ran some vanillas just to try and speed up into it. Um, Anything like
yeah,
that?
I did consider it, but I feel like actually Dino Beamon is still a decent cut. The reason for that is because it can easily run over your opponent's blockers, and it has piercing, it has jamming. So some things that I like to do or I tend to do is that I would try to just if I have a Dino Beamon on the field, if I have a jamming Vmon on the field as well, if I know that my opponent has a blocker, I'll try to get rid of the blocker by baiting that block. So I'll attack with a Vmon. If he does block, then I'll just delete it with Dino Beamon. So I think the piercing here is actually quite underrated. So I do feel like having this, Dino Beamon and Imperial package, I think is quite useful.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I guess people get drawn into the Peldramon. The idea of Imperialdramon swinging twice is like the dream come true. But no, Dynabeam it's a good way of thinking about it, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Like just going back to one of my earlier points, right? Like lots of people are playing blockers everywhere because there are people playing Imperial Dramon, there are people playing Rookie Rush, and they want to get all of their beefy blockers up. So I feel like Dino Beamon is just a way to get rid of that scenario because the moment you have a blocker out of the way, it paves the path for all of your other smaller rookies to attack into security.
No, it makes sense, makes sense. And why change something that clearly works? Eh? I mean, they were put there for a reason. They clearly work for
Yeah.
Imperialdramon.
Yeah, no, exactly. If the card was designed this way, you gotta play the way the game was designed.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so that's Dino Beamon and Imperialdramon. I'm just gonna leave one copy of Imperialdramon there, because next up we're gonna go on to 4 copies of Imperialdramon Dragon Mode, to the blue version, which is the classic one. So really good card. If this is your first time looking at an Imperialdramon deck list, which I doubt it would be because it's quite a popular one. Basically, what it does is that on Digivolving, it will unsuspend all your other Digimon that have jamming on it. Which is why I encourage that if you were to play Imperialdramon, you shouldn't just have one stack of Imperialdramon. You should have more cards on the side, like maybe a Pilgrimon that's suspended. You can have your Brigitmon that's suspended, so that the moment you attack with all 3 of these, you can, ideally play your Imperialdramon, unsuspend these, and then you can go for another attack again. And another plus side of having a Pilgrimon as a Digisource is that when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has Imperialdramon in its name, you can unsuspend it. So technically, you can attack again for one more time. So it means that just this Pilgrimon alone, it can attack up to 3 times a turn when you Digivolve it, assuming you have the right amount of memory. So that's the usual combo that everyone knows about. But I'm just putting it out there in case it's your first time looking at an Imperialdramon deck.
No, that makes sense, and obviously it's a good way to explain it because I do find there's a lot of times where people just solely focused on the one stack in Imperial because they just want to get to the top end and keep swinging, and by that point it kind of runs out of gas to the point that there's you've got nothing else to swing alongside you. So you've done your two swings, you're left there with a 12k suspended, and 9 times out of 10 what follows that is going to be a Gaia Force or some sort of removal, an Omnimon, anything just to remove that stack, and Imperial loses all kind of rush.
Yeah, no, exactly. And actually, this one thing I found out during this tournament is that this unsuspending ability that Pilgrimon gives in Pilgrimon can also be used for defensive purposes. Because in my fourth matchup against Sarasmon, my opponent actually had Bancho Stingmon on the field. So instead of swinging twice a turn, what I did was I just swung in once with Imperial. Sorry, no, yeah, Imperial, and then I unsuspended it and just passed for turn because I didn't want him to get rid of Imperial. And luckily enough, he didn't get his, Sarasmon on the field. He just had one bunch of Stingmon and a bunch of blockers. So that worked out for me. So yeah, you have to keep in mind that just because you can attack twice per turn doesn't mean that you should. You have to play it to your strengths and to your opponent's weakness.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, and that is one thing because I mean Bancho, that card, obviously it comes in quite clutch on occasions, and when it does go off, it can cost you games if you don't
Yeah,
cater for
no,
it.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so that's the Imperial. I play one copy of Imperial Green. The reason why I play one copy is also because I only have one copy of Omnimon. If I had two copies of Omnimon, I'd probably play two copies. But after playing with one copy of the green one, I found out that it's actually quite decent. Going back to one of my earlier points again, I think this is the third time I'm saying it, but there are blockers everywhere now. Having just one copy of this green Imperial can actually come in quite clutch because what it does is that it has piercing, and once per turn, if you delete your opponent's Digimon, you can unsuspend it. So its rules for unsuspending is quite different from Imperial Dramon Blue's rules for unsuspending, but that said, it can still unsuspend. So actually, if you have your Imperial Dramon below, you can essentially attack once. You can unsuspend once because of Pilgrimon, and then you can attack your opponent's Digimon. Suspended Digimon, you can delete it and you can unsuspend it again, and you can go for a third swing. So this can actually swing up to 3 times per turn, I think.
Yes, yeah,
As
because
compared to this.
you have to swing at security first to get his Paildramont effect, and then if he's not
Exactly.
rested, you get that nice little added bonus to restand again, which is great.
Exactly. So the plus side is that it can attack once more than the blue version. The downside is that it loses jamming, so it can just die to an Omnimon in security. But yeah, it depends on your matchup. I find that one copy is good. I find that there are times when I wish I had a second copy or I wish I drew into it because sometimes people just like to block things, right, with all your VMons on the field. But yeah, but this is if you're a budget player, don't worry too much about this. It's a nice to have, but it's not going to be a core part of your deck.
And it's just that for those budget players flexing the alt art there, don't buy that one. Buy the normal one.
Yeah, I just got it from the box. Like most of my old arts, I just got it from the box. I never buy old arts. I just didn't have the money for that.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, but talking about how I don't have money, I'm showing an Omnimon now. But to be fair, I got this from a box as well. But yeah, one copy of Omnimon is actually really good for removal. So in my 4 matchups, I played against Rookie Rush, Black Craniamon blockers, Rookie Rush / Imperial Dramon hybrid, and I played against Sarasmon. So I didn't find myself needing the Omnimon too much because the Omnimon is useful against decks like Ragnarlord or Shine Greymon or maybe Craniamon sometimes as well. But the thing is, I was quite lucky in the sense that my opponent was unlucky because he bricked quite badly for game 1, and then for the second game I just kind of rushed at him before he could get set up. But if you were to get a Craniamon setup, it's good to just get your Omnimon on the field and just delete everything. So yeah, it's good to have at least one copy in here, but in an ideal world, I'll have 2 copies somehow.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've seen that quite a lot because any more than that, you're looking for some level of inconsistency. 'Cause it's not like the old-fashioned. It's not like old Blue Omni one. I mean, I do think this has become a better Blue Omni now because how damaging it is. Because the problem was with set ones was Metal Groomon would die on every swing. You get no
Yeah.
added value from it. With this one, you're safe to swing and then safe to build up, and then you can go straight into that Omni one. So do you feel like this has become the better version of it?
Yeah, like I feel like the way that we play Omnimon here is a lot more flexible, and that's what I like about it because you no longer rely on Omnimon and dealing the damage. You rely on Imperialdramon, which means that Omnimon is a good removal source rather than a good aggressive source. So yeah, so that's why I feel like it's good to have a couple of copies, but not too many because you don't need Omnimon to give you the aggression there.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
But speaking of Omnimon and speaking of removal, I do play one wild copy of Kokaitis Breath, just in case I needed to remove things like Millennium Mon or Cranium Mon. I didn't quite use it in my matchups because I was playing against more aggressive decks. But looking back, I feel like this probably wouldn't have gone well against decks like Shangreymon because you would essentially be bouncing back your Shangreymon to your opponent, and usually they already have another level 5 setup. So they can Shangreymon you again in the next turn, so that's not very useful. This could be useful against Ragnarlordmon, but I wouldn't suggest putting one card into your deck just for that one archetype that not many people play anyway. So I still feel like in an ideal world, if you have Omnimon, just play Omnimon rather than Kokaitis Breath.
So keep the green Imperial, swap the Kaitis Breath out for the Omnimon. Basically, is the dream lineup.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Now that I kind of like this, and I know that I don't really like this, I would swap this for Omnimon if I had another one.
That makes sense.
Okay, on to the Tamers. 4 copies of Davis. It's actually really good. Because if you don't know what it does, basically when you play it, you can review the top 3 card, and you can put one blue and one green Digimon into your hand. So that's actually really good for you to scout for Pilgrimon, or in this case even Imperialdramon green, and you can put another blue into your hand, which is quite easy for you to hit. So yeah, it's a good way of getting card draw, and it's a good way for you to get memory control. If I find that I'm playing against decks that are a bit more defensive, like Ragnarlordmon or Shangreymon, I would try to play a Davis as soon as possible. The reason for that is because by using Davis, it allows you to, if you have a Pilgrimon on the board, it allows you to play Imperialdramon, and you can swing up to 3 times just in that turn alone. So it's quite a good setup for a late game aggressive turn, basically. So yeah, I would recommend you trying to get your Davis up sooner rather than later.
No, that makes sense, and it's a good way to right around it. I mean, Davis adds that great level of consistency to a lot of decks now. Blue, green, he's such a flexible spot in regards to a tamer. Not only recent use of 3, but potentially plussing to make him, if you go by most other card games, making him a 1 cost effectively. If you're getting 2 cards in hand from it, so you can't, or even actually paying for himself technically. So he has that level of value, which is immeasurable in this deck.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been looking at some of the Japanese meta for BT4, and some of them still do play Imperialdramon, and they actually have, instead of 3 copies of Davis, they actually do have 4 copies because you can Digivolve it into a Lobomon, which can then Digivolve into a Pilgrimon. So yeah, there is value in trying to get your Davis playset sometime soon if you intend to play Imperialdramon for a long time.
No, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, and on to the final set. It's just 3 copies of Hammerspark. Sometimes people like to play 4, but I feel like 4 might be a bit bricky sometimes. So remember, Gordo, when you mentioned that you streamed one of my matches in the final round, I actually break quite hard because all I had in my hand were Pilgrimons, Frigimons, and Hammersparks. I literally, in 4 turns, I drew 3 Hammersparks. So that was quite bad. Imagine if I had 4 Hammersparks in the deck, I would have gone even worse. So Hammerspark is useful for your early aggression, but I would on the side of caution of adding too many copies of them. Like a 4th copy might be a bit too much. But it is a helpful little card in your security, because I remember when I was playing against the Rookie Rush Imperialdramon hybrid, what happened was basically I had my Imperialdramon set up. I was swinging for game, etc. But I hit into a Hammer Spark. And if I didn't hit into the Hammer, and because of that, I passed it on over to his turn and he took the game. If I didn't hit into a Hammer Spark, I had the resources to essentially take the game then. So Hammer Spark is quite good defensively. It's quite good for early aggression, but don't rely on too many copies of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's one of those cards. I mean, it's a great card. It's 0 cost and gives you memory, though. I mean, undeniably, it's a great card. But yes, there's been many occasions where people have played it and all they've seen is Hammer Sparks. Is like the best resource in this game is Digimon. Hands down, that's what you want.
Exactly. Yeah, so I did mention earlier that I tend to play yellow decks and purple decks, and I do like to play those kind of like very very techy janky cards. But the thing is, purple is fun to play, but it's difficult to win because you get a lot of satisfaction trying to control your opponent's board, but sometimes you just forget to get your Digimon out and get it swinging. So yeah, as Gordo has mentioned, your Digimon is actually the most important resource rather than memory itself.
No, exactly. But I mean, this took you to first place. Obviously, some strong wins. What were your matchups overall? So you had a Craniumon. Was it first round? Was it?
No, so my first round was Rookie Rush. Second round was Craniumon. Third round was Rookie Rush / Imperialdramon hybrid kind of thing. That was quite interesting because he was running a bunch of blue and green 2-cost rookies, and suddenly he just played a Dino Beamon and an Imperialdramon, so I got a bit caught off guard there. And the final matchup was against Sarasmon.
And how did those matchups go? Was it I believe you struggled on the Imperial Rush rookie one, but I think was it the rest of them, were they 2-0s or 2-1s?
So for the first Rookie Rush, it was a 2-1. It had to be a comeback as well because I never faced Rookie Rush before in that capacity. For the second one against Craniumon, it was a 2-0. But when I realized that he was playing Craniumon, I actually got a little bit nervous because if he were to get all his blockers up, none of my Digimon could do anything. So if you're playing Imperialdramon, if the moment you realize that your opponent is playing Craniumon or your opponent is playing some sort of like big blockers, just go aggressive as possible.
Wide.
Just go wide, go wide, and go for game. You don't have time for them to set up. But yeah, for that one, I think I went 2-0. For the Rookie Rush Imperialdramon match up, I went 2-1, I think, and then for the Sarasmon, I went 2-1 as well. So for most of the rounds, I went 2-1 rather than 2-0, and I think this actually tells a story about Imperialdramon. If you do get the right cards, if you can predict your opponent's plays or your opponent's cards in hand relatively well, it can win you the game, but there's always an element of luck there. I did find myself quite lucky winning some of the rounds actually. So yeah, Imperialdramon deck it's fun to play. You don't have to think too much, but it's really a glass cannon.
Yeah, which is quite a thing this set for quite a few decks. I mean, even like Ragnar, it's very glass cannon. If you don't see the pieces, the deck doesn't have a great amount to offer. You kind of get stuck there. I think that's why people haven't gone like pure Ragnar builds as much anymore. They kind of filter out with things like Blitz, Greymon to give you tech in between, which is kind of like what you've done here, just to give yourself some kind of pushing power up until you get your win condition out.
Yeah, no, exactly. So if I would say that if other people playing against Imperialdramon decks like my own, try to stop us before we get our Imperialdramon out. Try to stop us at level 4 or level 5. Especially if you're purple, you're trying to beat this deck. Just get the Imperialdramon away because we only have 8 level 5s. The moment you choke us at the level 5 level, you can probably stop our momentum by them.
No, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, congratulations on the wins. You played it well. I wish I could have got more of your games. I'll make sure to pay more attention next time you're about. Because clearly you took it by storm. But is anybody you want to do any shout outs for yourself? Anybody that helped with the deck, or was this all solely by
definitely. You? Yeah. So actually, I actually got the final ticket for this tournament. I actually signed up quite late, but it was my friend Calvin who recommended that I go for this tournament. I think he was running like a purple deck, a purple melee turbo. But yeah, just shout out to him for helping me with the deck and trying to get me into this tournament, and had a lot of fun that day.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, obviously, it was great to have you on the channel. I will get this posted up soon enough for you, because I've had people asking left, right, and centre about some of the lists and how Imperial topped. So it'll be good for them to have a look over this. And I mean, obviously, we have got more tournaments coming up, so feel free to stop by again. Let's see if we can get you in for another win.
Yeah, perfect. Can do. Thanks, Gordo. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. I know you've got work now, so I'll let you get on with your day. But thank you for that, and I'll get the content up shortly. All right.
Cheers. All right. Thanks, Gordo. See you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.
And there we have it. So that is Shen Ang and his first place imperialdramon deck list. Chaos Cosmos, I'm pretty sure you're on my server, Jaxis, I believe. Only thing he'd suggest is dropping the Coitus Breath, as you probably caught that in the conversation there. Wall, hello, how you doing? Chaos Cosmos, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and all that to get yourself involved in the competition and the giveaway, as you know, and drop me your details. I'll do the same on yours to give you that support. But this was imperialdramon at its peak. This one took, it was a 4-round tournament overall, because the last round, well, the other top table drew. There is a video out on that one already for the deck profile. That was Thomas Basnett, and that is literally labelled as the guy that threw the tournament. Not saying he could have won, but he could have won. Well, he could have tried at least. But Shen Ang Pali today, very nice person. I'm glad to have him on the channel today, doing all this, and I will get this all posted up for you in case you want to have a try at imperialdramon yourself. Yeah, it is a heavy top end there. So with it, I mean, it's one of those, because like we were saying, a lot of decks are kind of glass cannon feel now, because this set was such a heavy archetype. So you can either focus on that kind of feel just to build into the main piece of it. But like I said, there's helpful tips if you want to stop an Imperialdramon, choke them at 5, because there's only 8 level 5s in most Imperial decks. Taking that resource from them, so even like Alter Essing, Gaia Forcing, however you want to do it, just taking those resources from them is a good tech to look into there. But I'll sign off here, because I will be back on later for my tournament. For those of you who are taking part tonight, I'll see you there. Well, yes, the champagne did not help Tom on giving away the win, but if you want to check out the video for that, and it's on the full stream itself. And if you want to check out Wall here, there is a game specifically for him as well, and Kilomon Strikes Back. Now, obviously you might all be baffled by the sound of that video, but by all means check it out. And Kylo here is a little bit hurt by it still, but I mean, it was hilarious to watch from my point of view. So I will catch you all later. Thanks for tuning into Gordo's Games, and thanks to Shen once again for being on the channel.